Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Education USA information session on short-term programs and study abroad experience. In today's session, we have representatives coming from University of California, Berkeley Extension. And over the presentation, I will introduce them and give you a good overview of the importance of doing short-term study programs in the US. Before that, for many of you who have gathered here at the American Center and those of you who are joining us live, I would like to give a short introduction about who we are and what we do. I know many of you are following us on the Facebook page and also keep sending us questions on WhatsApp and the YouTube channel of US Consulate General Chennai. But still, I would like to give a short introduction for those of you who have joined us just today. Okay. Education USA is a US government funded program, and it is in existence in over 180 countries, and we have more than 400 plus centers all around the world. The mandate of Education USA is to provide the most accurate, comprehensive, current and unbiased information on US higher education. So having said that, we provide a lot of services for students and the parents of those students aspiring to go to US and help them help them to seamlessly go through with their application process into US universities. So there are many centers all around the world, and in India we have 7 centers and the most well-known metro cities, and we have 2 independent centers in Ahmedabad and Bangalore. So this Education USA program is administered by a binational organization called United States India Educational Foundation. This US India Educational Foundation is not an organization that began just few years ago. It's there ever since 1950, and it is a treaty signed between the 2 countries to foster education and cultural exchanges between the 2 countries. Apart from this Education USA program, whose focus is more towards students, USIF also administers Fulbright and Fulbright Nehru fellowships, which awards distinguished fellowships for people in certain areas which has a lot of community connection, and they offer many things to the community. So if you visit our website www.usif.org.in, you will have great details about the Fulbright fellowship programs and as well as the Education USA. So we are now bang on our program, Study Abroad, the long-term benefits, both professional and personal. So we have the experts here with us today, Anna Eseki-Smith, who is the Director Global Outreach, and Eddie West, who is the Executive Director International Programs. So they are going to share with you the advantage of doing such programs and how UC Berkeley Extension is offering programs to international students like you. So now I invite Anna to go ahead with this presentation and give an overview about the study abroad programs.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for coming today. My name is Anna Eseki-Smith. I'm Director of Global Outreach. A quick thank you to our colleagues at Education USA for the opportunity to be here today. My colleague Eddie and I have been in India for about 11 days. We started in New Delhi, and then we went to Chandigarh, then we went to Mumbai, Pune, and now we're in Chennai. Very happy to be here. It's a bit warmer than it is in the Bay Area, so it's taken us a little bit of getting used to, but we've enjoyed the food tremendously during our whole trip. We've really overindulged in that area, so it's a real pleasure to be here today. So anyway, we are going to introduce our short-term study abroad options, but I thought it's always good to have some context with regards to why we feel our portfolio might be of interest to you. The big question, I think, for a lot of you, whether you are a university student, a high school student, or a working professional, why would you go overseas for study? I mean, obviously, home is a wonderful place, and going overseas is expensive. You spend time away from your family. It really is a very big decision, especially for people who have never left their home countries. And I'm not just talking about young Indian students, but from across the world. I'm sure that you all can relate to pressure and competition. I think people are feeling it at school, they're feeling it at university, and they're feeling it at their workplace. And there are a lot of reasons why that is happening. One of the reasons is because we're living in an increasingly integrated world. I think back in the day, maybe if you were at a university or a high school student, you were only competing with fellow other Indian students, perhaps to go to university, and now there are very qualified, very hardworking students in China, in Japan, in Turkey, in France, all competing to go overseas for study. So and also corporations, their workforces are also becoming more globalized. So to get a job, you really have to compete with a much larger pool of very qualified students. So that is contributing to that pressure and competition at university and also at the workplace. And it does trickle down, I think, even to high schools. We're finding that high school students are really feeling that pressure. At the same time, you probably are also hearing these words, the 21st century skills, which we already are in the 21st century, adaptability, creativity, and teamwork. These are buzzwords because of that the increasingly globalized landscape that we're working in. If you are working with colleagues from Japan or America or the UK, you have to be adaptable. You can't just rely on your ability to work on teams that are fellow Indians or, for me, Americans. You really need to be much more embracing and encompassing in how you work with other people, and oftentimes that involves creativity. How can I problem solve with a team full of international colleagues? How do you work on a team project at a university where your colleagues are all from other countries? So they're buzzwords, but they really are quite meaningful, I feel. You also might have heard about a knowledge economy. In many countries across the globe, it has been largely a manufacturing economy, like it is in India, it was in China, even in Hong Kong back in the day, but increasingly it is an economy of ideas, innovation. So young people or people of any age really need to learn how to have ideas and how to express them. So it's not just understanding your industry, it is really about how to formulate ideas, how to be creative, how to be encompassing, and how to express them. Just in terms of the global network that I was talking about, and this is a bit dated, but for comparison's sake, I want you to see that the number of students studying overseas back in 1975 were under 1 million students. Right now, there are 4.5 million students studying overseas, and I think if this were to be updated, it would be closer to 5. There are many, many people studying overseas so that they can be part of that globalized workforce that I'm talking about. Part of that reason that students are going overseas is the nature of the economy is rapidly changing. If this is a graph of the of companies ranked by market capitalization, if you see not even 2001, you'll note that the top 5 companies that were ranked by market capitalization are from a wide variety of industries. So you have General Electric, you have a utility, you have tech, oil, banking, consumer goods. So it's very, very wide. You go ahead 5 years and you can see that it's basically a reorganization of the previous one. Total is a French oil or energy company. You go 5 years to 2011, you're seeing the rise of China. PetroChina, you see a Chinese bank here. So, but it still is a bit varied. You go back to 2016 and it is entirely tech. So the economy that we're working in these days is changing rapidly. And as I'm sure that you will agree, when we do this again in 5 years, it will be tech. We all know what's happened to consumer goods. It's now completely been revolutionized, as has media. So in 2021, when we do this another 5 years, you might see other tech players from China, for example, but most likely all 5 of the most powerful corporates in the world will be tech companies. So the workplace that we're dealing with is changing very rapidly. As a result of that, this was a survey that was done by Manpower, which is an HR company, and they asked corporate executives about the skills gap. And I don't know if you know what a skills gap is. It's the gap between the skills that university students have upon graduation and the skills that employers need to build their workforces and to be competitive. That's the gap. And if they surveyed actually it's very interesting that India's up there now that I'm looking at this being in Chennai, that the corporates, 81% of the corporate executives that responded to this survey said they're experiencing a skills gap, so that they cannot find the skills they want to build their workforces based on the graduates that they're recruiting from. 64% from India. And from the little that I gathered, I mean, Eddie and I have met a wide variety of wonderful colleagues in India, but so our knowledge of India is still quite superficial, but it's been repeated to us that there is a skills gap in India. And I think this is interesting that this graph also illustrates that. And you can see that the countries working down, Turkey, Brazil, Mexico, et cetera, the executives are seeing a skills gap in terms of their hiring practices. So, so there are all these international students. You see the sort of the digitization of the workplace. There's a skills gap, and at the same time, there are going to be jobs lost to technology. So there are many moving parts in today's world. Obviously, at the bottom, this is the likelihood of the job being replaced by technology. You can see that it's already happening. Telemarketers, accountants, retail salespeople, those are all being automated. And that's happening as we speak. And the ones at the top are the ones that are more face-to-face, recreational therapists, dentists, athletic trainers. So the jobs that are safe from being automated are those that really do rely a lot on the face-to-face. The ones that are being automated are perhaps a little bit more rote in the nature. So the jobs that we're all interested in doing, it may fall somewhere in this scale, but there is a huge sort of revolution in terms of jobs being automated. And who knows, 5 years down the road, what jobs will be lost to automation. So as a result of those changes that I've mentioned to you, there has been a decline in university qualifications that were at one point considered to be sort of a sure route to success. I think maybe 10, 15 years ago, the MBA was regarded as, if I get an MBA, I make the financial and time commitment that my job at the graduation will be better than the job that I get. And better is sort of a subjective term. I would say perhaps that you're making more money, just at the risk of being very simplistic. But however, we're seeing globally a decline in the number of students that are applying for an MBA. I think you may agree that the education that MBAs provided 15, 20 years ago may not be applicable today when you're talking about all those moving parts that I illustrated earlier. There's a drop in the number of students being sponsored by their companies to get an MBA, and the rise in tech companies are perhaps not managed in the manner that perhaps a manufacturing company was or a bank. You may know that a lot of the very famous leaders of tech companies didn't even go to university, they dropped out. So the qualifications that we used to associate with success may not be applicable to those big five companies from the graph that I indicated before. So anyway, you can see that this is sort of following the trend that I've illustrated earlier. The skills that are rising in importance are actually ones that may have been considered quite niche back when the MBAs were sort of on the rise. And this is an example. This is a graph, a study that was done by Indeed.com, which is a jobs portal. And they measured the clicks, the postings for cybersecurity, and then that's the blue bar. And then the orange bar represents the clicks. So you can see, you might recall the skills gap that I was referring to. There is definitely a skills gap when you're talking about cybersecurity. You may also know that the orange, if you click on a job, I mean, we've all done it, is not necessarily a job that you will apply for. So the orange bar actually measures the people that think they may be qualified. These are not the people that actually got the job. So the demand is blue. The people who think they might be qualified is the orange. So you can see that what the corporate executives indicating that they can't find the employees they want. This is a very good example of that type of skills gap, and I'm sure you can't find a corporation today that doesn't want to hire an excellent cybersecurity expert on their workforce. This is a sort of a list that was released by the World Economic Forum, and they're comparing this top 10 skills that will be in demand between 2015 and 2020. I have an even more recent a graphic from them. As I mentioned before, if we remember the adaptability, the creativity skills, complex problem solving, very important, coordinating with others, which is teamwork, people management. You go ahead to 2020 with this just next year. Again, complex problem solving, because the landscape that we're working on is becoming increasingly complicated. Critical thinking, how to assess a situation and sort of deal with it. And again, creativity, which is, again, being innovative, thinking of ways to problem solve. So these are sort of the skills that they are projecting will be important in 2020. And they came out with this more recently. This is the outlook to 2022. The growing skills they see that will be growing in importance: analytical thinking and innovation, active learning and learning strategies, creativity, originality, and initiative. So these are all thematically sort of the same as the three that I mentioned earlier under the 21st century skills: technology, design, and programming, critical thinking, and analysis. So you sort of get the gist of where the emphasis is going. And it's very interesting, they have the focus on the declining skills. So the skills that are going to become increasingly less important: manual dexterity, endurance, and precision, which you're talking about automation, so people that work in factories, we're seeing this already. Memory, verbal, auditory, and spatial abilities. I think this is very important. A lot of universities that we visited around the world do depend a lot on rote learning. It's about listening to the instructor speak and then remembering that information for a test. It's not very engaging. The World Economic Forum is indicating that that kind of skill to memorize information and data is going to become less important because they're going to focus more on creativity, which is not rote memorization. Management of financial material resources, technology, installation, and maintenance, obviously, but also what's kind of alarming is they're seeing that reading, writing, math, and active listening are also going to be declining. That's really sort of the basic tenets of education, so perhaps they're looking that education needs to be more engaging, a little bit more innovative in how that students learn basic skills. I thought this was a very interesting graphic as well from the World Economic Forum. They predict that the number of jobs that will be created as a result of this tech economy and knowledge economy will actually be greater than the number of jobs that will decline. The top 10 emerging jobs are amongst them data analysts and scientists. That's sort of a no-brainer. We've all heard about big data. AI and machine learning specialists, general and operations managers, et cetera, et cetera. The declining professions they see are data entry clerks, accounting, bookkeeping, and payroll clerks, administrative and executive secretaries. So a lot of, again, the rote sort of administrative work will be increasingly automated. So it is heartening that the number of jobs created will be greater than the number of jobs lost, but obviously it's for those people that have the skills. So it's a matter of making sure that you all stay abreast of these trends, and so that you're sort of learning throughout your life, not just at university or at graduate school. So the employers, what they want are sort of, let's face it, the undergraduate degree is the gold standard. That is sort of universally appreciated. And I think in terms of an MBA or a graduate degree, if it's from a top-notch university somewhere in the world, the Ivy League, the Russell Group, et cetera, there still is definite value in that. So I don't want to indicate at all that those routes are not absolutely worthy of pursuit, but there is just a sort of a trend towards sort of lifelong learning in terms of keeping your skills up to date. And that will be in a short course, or will be in a sort of a modular form of learning. And it could be a series of courses. It doesn't have to be a semester. It could be an online course. It can be a short, it could be a badge, et cetera. And skills, they want to be skills, students want the skills to get hired. I think we've heard since we've been in India that students here want definite ROI, return on investment, with regards to education in terms of tangible outcomes. So we're learning that we need to sort of articulate what we offer because students want to be hired. They want a job. I mean, obviously, a university education is meaningful in terms of the experience, but the outcome that would be really wonderful for all young people is to get a job, and a job that they feel qualified for. So anyway, that was sort of the context within short courses, and my colleague Eddie will talk a little bit about our portfolio of programs and also a little bit about Berkeley, California. So.
Thank you. All right. That's good. All right. Hi everyone. Nice to see you all here. Thank you so much for coming. As Anna mentioned and Shanti mentioned earlier, my name is Eddie. I work very closely with Anna at UC Berkeley Extension, and I'm going to share just a little bit about our different programs to kind of connect what we do with that top level presentation that Anna just gave about the importance of short courses. So to start, first, I wonder, does everyone know UC Berkeley? I don't know if you've heard of UC Berkeley, hopefully. All right, good, good. So we are located in California, and specifically, we're located very close to the city of San Francisco, the beautiful city of San Francisco. So I'm not sure if you're familiar, but Los Angeles is right around here. San Diego is right around here. We've got Mexico here. Oregon up there. So we're kind of in the middle to northern part of the state. There's a little picture of our campus right there. Beautiful Berkeley. This is the Campanile. This is the Bay. Does anyone know what this is? Very good. Golden Gate Bridge, the Golden Gate Bridge, that's right. And this body of water is called the Bay, and we are called the San Francisco Bay Area because of our location. So a little bit about Berkeley. I was very pleased to see that many of you know UC Berkeley. We are, by some people's estimations, considered one of the top, if not top, public university in the US. We currently have close to 10,000 international students from about 90 to 100 different countries, including, of course, India. And that includes students who are studying at the bachelor degree level, the master's degree level, as well as PhD. Okay. Now, as Anna kind of alluded, we are UC Berkeley Extension. And I don't know how many people have heard of UC Berkeley Extension. Okay, a few. UC Berkeley proper has been around for 150 years. UC Berkeley Extension, we're the continuing and professional and lifelong education division of UC Berkeley. We've been around for about 130 years. I myself have not been around for 130 years, but I share that just to say that we've got a long and rich history delivering education to both local members of the Berkeley community as well as international students. And I'm going to take just a little bit of time and go through each one of these programs just to give an example of the types of experiences you can partake of. So the College Foundations program is a short-term program for high school students. Are there anyone here today who's in high school currently? All right, all right.
I've come for my twin girls, they're in high school.
Oh, fantastic. Okay. And you as well. Well, welcome. Hopefully some of you in the online audience as well. So we have a couple of programs for high school students. One is called our summer program. It's our College Foundations summer program. Those are 6 weeks in length or 8 weeks in length. And those are for students who know that in the future they want to go to a US university, but they don't feel completely prepared to do so just yet. So they come to Berkeley for a summer. They take, again, either 6 weeks worth of coursework or 8 weeks worth of coursework, actual UC Berkeley classes in the summer. So they're actually very intensive. But students do that to get a feeling for what it's like to study in the United States. And some students do that to kind of prove to themselves and maybe to admissions officers that they can rise to the challenge of the rigor of the UC Berkeley coursework, and it is very rigorous. So students come for 6 weeks or 8 weeks. We offer students in the College Foundations program college counseling. So a lot of times students, let's say you're in 11th grade and you're in your summer about to go into 12th grade, and that's when you're really thinking, where do I want to apply for university undergraduate studies? We have college counselors that work with students in this program to help them research schools, to help them understand what's important in a college admissions essay, to help them understand what makes for a strong letter of recommendation. So it's basically all about preparing students for success at university. Most of the students who come to this program are planning to go to undergraduate studies in the United States, some of them maybe to the UK, Canada, or elsewhere. So that's the summer program. We also have an academic year version of that program. So this is an interesting option. Not many people know about this, but it is a 2-semester academic year experience for students who want to take a gap year. I don't know if anyone's familiar with the term gap year, but that's for students who have completed their senior year of high school, but they don't feel perfectly ready yet to go directly into a freshman undergraduate program of study. So they take off a year and they study with us at UC Berkeley Extension. So it's not a conditional admission program to UC Berkeley, but it is an academic year preparatory program to help students boost their chances and boost their readiness for success at a US university. So as an example, our graduates of the academic year program have gotten admission to MIT, to Stanford, to UCLA, UT Austin, UW-Madison, many great American universities. It's the same idea as the summer version of the program, just much longer. And so students who really want to spend a lot of time preparing for success at university. So that's the College Foundations program. That's for high school students. Okay. So Berkeley Global Access Program. This program is, we find, increasingly popular among undergraduate students. Are there any people here today who are undergraduate students? All right, we have a good mix. All right, so I'll give an example. We have a number of students right now from Shiv Nadar University outside in Noida. They're studying for bachelor's degrees at Shiv Nadar. They're taking one semester off from their studies at Shiv Nadar. They've come to study through our Berkeley Global Access Program. They're going to spend one semester with us, take actual UC Berkeley courses, earn actual UC Berkeley credits, and then bring those credits back home to Shiv Nadar University, apply the credits toward their degree, and then later graduate with an undergraduate degree from Shiv Nadar. So it's kind of like a study abroad program, study at UC Berkeley for a semester. And UC Berkeley Extension, not everyone knows this, but we essentially act as an enrollment support to help students take real UC Berkeley courses. And you might think, well, that sounds a little bit unusual. How does that work? So how it works is we have many undergraduate degree students from all over the world, many graduate degree students from all over the world. After all of those students have registered for all of the many UC Berkeley classes, there is always space still available in some classes. What Berkeley Global Access does is give students an opportunity to access those remaining class spaces, right? So I don't know if it works the same in India, but say we've scheduled a class in Introduction to Data Science. Maybe there's room for 100 students. 98 degree students take those spaces. There's 2 left over. Berkeley Global Access students can come through Extension and access those courses. So it's a very popular option among short-term, one-semester international students. And we have programs that allow students to take classes in an array of different disciplines. So it's called Berkeley Global Access Discover. It's essentially interdisciplinary. So say you think you want to major in economics, but you're also interested in data science. You can take a couple courses in economics, a couple courses in data science, construct your semester. We have other versions of this program that are discipline specific. So we have a business program that's run with our Haas School of Business. It's called the Berkeley Haas Global Access Program. We have an environmental design program that's called the College of Environmental Design Global Access Program. We have a law program that's called the Legal Studies Global Access Program. And the idea is much the same, opening up Berkeley quality education to students who are not full-time degree students. So I share that to say that some of you may be thinking about coming to California for a full degree, but others of you might be saying, you know what, that's too much time away from India, that's too much expense involved. This is a way to do a one-semester program at UC Berkeley without having to apply for formal admission and attend for 4 or even 2 years as a master's student. So those are our Berkeley Global Access programs. Our international diploma programs, those are for students who are looking predominantly for applied learning and applied skill development. So upskills, very much what Anna was talking about earlier. Students who understand that my main motivation is to enhance my career prospects. So we offer these international diploma programs that are for, you will see, students who are already as a senior at university or have already graduated and are in the workforce here in India. So I'll give an example. We see many students who say they're working for their family business here in Chennai, and they say, you know what, I want to upskill. I want to learn more skills in my current field. Or maybe I want to learn new skills in a totally different domain like accounting or marketing. They'll take off a half a year or 4 months from their family business. They come to Berkeley and they enroll in one of these international diploma programs. And they take a very deep dive into one of these functional business areas. And the difference, if I may, between the IDP, as we call them, and the Berkeley Global Access programs is that these are very applied, if you know what I mean. So meaning the learning that students experience in these programs is all about giving students the skills and the knowledge to immediately apply their learning in the workforce once they return to it. So if you're at all career-oriented and you think, okay, as soon as I come back from America, I want to get a better job or a new career, these are great options, and you'll see we offer them in a variety of disciplines, including UX, UI design, new programs in data science, and even one in AI coming up soon. Just to give an example among our programs of our admission requirements, we require for IDP, I mentioned, at least 3 years of undergraduate study. Our TOEFL minimum is a 79 or higher, or an IELTS of 6.5 or higher. On occasion, we will waive the English language testing requirement for students who come from a country where English is the common spoken language, but that applies to students who are non-native speakers. I'll give another kind of overview of how different students can choose different lengths of study. So one option is to do a 4-month program in one of the IDPs. So say you're interested in marketing. You can come over, study with us for 4 months in marketing, obtain a certificate, come back to India, apply your learning in the workforce. Some of our students, however, they'll do a 4-month program in marketing and then they do an internship. So UC Berkeley Extension provides internships. I mean, we don't do the internships, but we arrange for the internships at local area companies in the San Francisco Bay Area. So many of our students will do an 8-month study, which is 4 months in a program, 4 months in an internship. The other possibility is to do 2 IDPs. So maybe you say, okay, I'm interested in marketing, but I'm also interested in entrepreneurship. I think maybe I want to start my own business someday. You can do 1 in marketing, 1 in entrepreneurship, and then an internship. And if you do 12 months, you can get OPT. And we know that OPT is of real interest to many students in India and around the world. How many people know OPT? Okay, so OPT stands for Optional Practical Training, and essentially it is work eligibility in the United States. So if you complete an academic year program, so in our case, at least 9 months, in many cases 12 months, you qualify automatically for OPT eligibility. What that means is you can get a job, a paying job, in the local area or elsewhere in the United States in your field of study. And that's actually an important point. Not everyone knows that. But for OPT, you have to have a job in your field of study. So if you come, just FYI, if you come to the US and you major in music, you'll have to get a job in the music industry on OPT, otherwise no can do. But that's the nice thing about our business programs, because they're broadly applicable to many different work settings. So many of our students will do, as I say, one semester in one program, second semester in another program, then do an internship, then segue to OPT. So if you do that, that's actually 2 years, right? But many students are interested in that because this OPT, being a paid opportunity, can kind of help finance some of this earlier study, defray the costs. I think I already went over Berkeley Global Access. I'm just going to go through this really quickly because this is mostly about admissions requirements, and I already covered those with respect to the diploma programs. Generally speaking, the more rigorous the course that we offer, the higher the admission requirement. So actually, if I just cycle back very quickly, some of our more advanced programs are 90 TOEFL or higher. Again, I don't think that is going to be a challenge for students from India, but you should note as well that we usually hold for a 3.0 grade point average equivalent or higher. I will say the students in our programs, because many of them are attracted to UC Berkeley, they're pretty ambitious. They're pretty academically on it. So if you thrive in an environment where there's a lot of intellectual stimulation, you will find many kindred spirits at UC Berkeley Extension. Okay. So last, I just want to share a little bit about life outside the classroom. We're very proud of the fact that UC Berkeley Extension provides excellent academic preparation, but we also, our students like to have fun. So there's a lot to do in the Bay Area. There's a lot of, we do extracurricular activities. We take students on trips to things like the Monterey Bay Aquarium. We do ice cream socials. We do all sorts of things to kind of foster friendship development, as well as for the professionally oriented students, networking and career connections like that. The other thing that I would be remiss if I didn't mention is we have a very strong student services team. So we understand that if you're planning to come all the way to the United States for study, that's a major commitment, major. And I have to say, I am really, really impressed by anyone who does that, because that takes a lot of courage and confidence. But we don't want you to have to go it alone. So we have a staff, here are some of the people, here are more of the people that are there to serve and support you with everything from extracurricular support to student visa related advice to career advice to just helping you make a cultural adjustment to life in the United States. Life in the United States is very different from life in Chennai, I can safely say, in many respects. So our staff are there really to make for a smooth transition, to make students feel comfortable. Sometimes students get homesick. Our staff is there to kind of talk them through that. Sometimes students just want to know, where's the best veg restaurant? Our staff is there to tell them where that is. So there's a lot of friendly support there. Housing, some people wonder, where do I live if I'm studying at UC Berkeley? If you come to the summer programs, we have dormitory availability, so you can live on campus. During the rest of the year, the dormitories are full with degree students, so students have to stay in private shared apartments. In rarer cases, homestays, but most of our students do shared apartments in the local area. And once again, our friendly staff, this guy, will help you find housing in the local area and give you advice on what that might look like. So with that, that's a little bit about our programs and life in Berkeley. I think now we have time for questions that Anna and I will field. Questions from the online audience, or hopefully also questions from some of you here in person. Yes?
I have a question on the college foundation program for high school kids. Now, is the whole program about getting them ready for college, whether it's going to be counseling, or are there any specific programs like the robotics or big data or data management or anything relevant to that?
That's a great question. So the academic year program is very multidisciplinary. So the students take an array of different courses almost to mimic the first year of a liberal arts or general education at an undergraduate level. So they take, for example, service learning course, computer science C++ course, academic writing, maths, chemistry, English, things of that sort. So it's a very rich and diverse program that is by design multidisciplinary, so that by the time they're undergraduate freshmen, they're kind of ready for that, multidisciplinary approach that is the sort of hallmark of US general education. The summer programs are different. The summer programs are much more specialized, to your point. There we find, because it's a very compressed calendar, students can only take 1 or 2 courses in that 6 or 8 week time. So they tend to say, okay, I want to do computer science, or I want to do business, or I'd like to do English literature, and they choose based on their interests. Your question, though, is excellent, too, in reminding me that in summer 2020, so not this summer, but next summer and beyond, we'll be offering shorter college foundations programs, meaning 3 weeks or 4 weeks in length, and those will be specifically designed for students that want to do a very deep dive in one and only one discipline, and those will be offered in a variety of different settings. But the common thread about that program is indeed it's meant to prepare students for success once they become undergraduate. So, students can come and join the program even if they have no intention of applying to UC Berkeley later, even if they have no intention of applying to a US university later, but we kind of recommend that that be their goal because, again, the foundation of the program is college readiness. And I should also mention, it's not about just college admissions. We design the curriculum and the extracurricular supports thinking about how can a student learn the study skills and the research skills and the adjustment skills to be successful after they've been admitted. So again, that's where our college counselors come in and work with the students and just kind of entrain them to understand what is involved in applying and then succeeding once they enroll. And the last thing I'll say is that the longer the program, of course, the richer the preparation. The one thing we're grappling with, admittedly, is understanding that a 3-week program is only going to do so much. So that's where if the student really wants that rich experience, they would come for a longer period of study.
Related to that, when is summer there? Because summer here is May, the month of May, and I know our vacations don't really coincide.
Yeah.
Since they're in school, it's not possible for them to take off for 6 weeks if summer over there is July.
Exactly right, yeah. So that's another kind of great point, because this is part of the reason, starting in summer 2020, we'll be offering those shorter term experiences, because Anna and myself and others who go to different countries understand well that the academic calendars vary. And so we'll be offering summer programs beginning in May and running all the way through August. That is the current plan. The schedule's not been released yet, but that is the thinking, so that students can be accommodated no matter their schedule. Yeah. Sure.
I have a continuing question about what was talking about. And do they get college credit for these summer programs, especially for high school students?
Yes, they do. They do.
And how different taking a course from UC Berkeley Extension versus UC Berkeley, and how different it is in terms of certification per se, or in terms of price points?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the UC Berkeley Extension course. Oh, I'm sorry. That's right. Let me repeat the question for the audience. I forgot about that, the online audience. So the earlier question was just about the nature of the College Foundations program, the preparatory program for high school students. The most recent question is about the difference in terms of pricing as well as any other differences between a UC Berkeley course and a UC Berkeley Extension experience. The original question also was, are those roughly equivalent, and do students earn credit for those College Foundation courses? And the answer is yes. The answer to the difference between the pricing, roughly speaking, the pricing is very comparable. When UC Berkeley Extension creates the courses that we do, we want those prices to essentially mimic what an international student would pay in a degree program. So in all candor, depending on the nature of the program, it will be anything from US $11,000, this is for 1 year, up to, sorry, I take that back, $22,000 for a full year, up to 40,000 US for a full year. And actually an undergraduate at UC Berkeley as an international student would pay about $40,000 for 1 year. So that's the similarities or differences of price point. In terms of the difference in the programs, Extension really specializes in the preparatory applied nature of learning, whereas Berkeley proper is more about academics. So we often say that students who come to us at the undergraduate level, if their goal is to eventually get a master's degree or a PhD, maybe they want to be a university professor someday, they should go into a UC Berkeley proper experience, like our Berkeley Global Access program, or become a degree-seeking student. Whereas if their goal is to sort of upskill for career enhancement purposes, then they're better off at a UC Berkeley Extension program. The credential is roughly the same, just the distinction being in a transcript that a student would earn from UC Berkeley Extension, it will designate UC Berkeley Extension. But this is a question you didn't ask, but it's a common question we get. We are part of the university. It's just that we're the continuing education division of it.
I just wanted to add the Berkeley Global Access programs that Eddie was mentioning are actually quite personalized, so there's a lot of attention. It is a short course, so there's a lot of, as we have advising, we have a lot of more social events that are embedded, which may not necessarily be the same attention that a student going to Berkeley as a regular student, part of a 10,000 student cohort might have. So because it is a short course, we have for the Haas program and for the legal studies program, they offer enhancements to their site visits. We organize trips to LinkedIn, to Google, some of the top branded companies in the Bay Area. So there's a lot of sort of value add to our short courses because it is such a short period of time to gain the most they can from Berkeley. Any other questions?
The recruitment process, you had some criteria. So maybe like IELTS sounds on you. Maybe for a program you have an intake of maybe 50 students, but students who are applying with the criteria met or maybe 200, 300, what will be the process you like what are the other external factors you see to select 50 out of the 200?
So your question is how do we assess students for entry into our programs? Well, I mean, one key part of our admissions is the personal statement that you write about your motivations for coming into our programs, and that those are really read quite thoroughly by our staff. I mean, we really do take a holistic approach to assessing our candidates. So really which is actually the process that UC Berkeley does overall. We don't look simply at a TOEFL score or a GPA. We look at the other sort of contributions that student can make to the cohort of students. So I don't know, Eddie. That's it. I think that's sort of.
Yeah, I think that's safe to say. I mean, we take what many people describe as a holistic admissions process or viewpoint. So we're really looking at the entirety of the student. And I will echo what Anna just said. We look very closely at the personal statement to assess a couple of things. One, does the student really understand the program that he or she is applying to? Two, is the student a good fit, therefore, for that program? And quite honestly, 3, can the student communicate well to express themselves in the English language? I don't mean to minimize the TOEFL or the grade point average, but that personal statement is very, very important to us.
I had a question regarding the environmental program that you had, environmental design program. I think that's not in your IDP course offering. Can you highlight, talk about
Elaborate on that? Do you want me to take that? Or
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So the question is just to elaborate upon the environmental design program that we offer. So the environmental design program is called the College of Environmental Design Global Access Program. It's part of our general global access family. That program allows students who are interested in either architecture, landscape architecture, as distinguished from architecture, as well as urban planning. Any one of those 3 areas, if a student has interest in that, they take courses through that global access route at the UC Berkeley College of Environmental Design. So it's quite the specialized program, but the benefits of it is that you're studying at one of the top environmental design colleges in the country. And like Anna was saying with respect to some of our extracurricular activities, the courses are supplemented with site visits to, say, environmental design firms, architectural firms, and it tends to be a 1-semester program. I think we may have had 1 or 2 students study for a year, but it tends to be a 1-semester program for undergraduates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is a program specialized for undergraduates, or is it available to people who've done a postgraduate and they're looking at venturing into design, maybe planning? For somebody from a business and liberal arts background, such as myself,
Yeah.
I'm interested in urban planning because I've been working with the government on similar projects. If I have to gain an understanding of that field,
Yeah.
is this the course I should look at?
I think, to be
You wanna
honest, I
repeat
mean,
the question? Yeah.
well, you're wondering, you're a working professional, and you're wondering if the program, which is sort of originally designed for undergraduates, would embrace somebody that actually has been out in the field and done some work. To be honest, I think that would be something we would want to make sure it's a good fit for you. So you could probably talk to me or Eddie, or if you do apply to one of our admissions people, just to make sure that it's a good fit. So
Yeah.
I think we could look at it more on an individual level, according to what you want the outcomes of the program to be.
And I'll just add, if you have multidisciplinary interests, so let's say in an ideal world you would be taking some courses in environmental design and business, then instead of doing that program, you should look at the general multidisciplinary Berkeley Global Access Program, because that opens up access to the entirety of the UC Berkeley course curricula. And so we find students who are very focused, they go for one of those disciplinary programs. Students who have multiple interests go for more of the global access. Yeah.
It's a question from the online viewers.
Oh,
So the question is about they're interested in doing a nursing program. Does UC Berkeley Extension offer any short-term study on nursing?
okay, so the question, I'm going to be good this time. The question from the audience is there's interest in nursing, and does UC Berkeley Extension offer anything by way of nursing programming? We don't offer nursing programming per se. What we offer at Extension are science-based courses. So we have Berkeley Extension Chemistry, Berkeley Extension Biosciences, Berkeley Extension Maths, and we see a lot of students enter what we call our post-bac program, post-baccalaureate. They've done a baccalaureate or bachelor's degree in India or elsewhere, and before going to graduate studies, so before going to a nursing program, they can do a post-bac in the sciences area at UC Berkeley Extension.
There's one more question on, do you offer any short-term program on English language?
Okay, so I'll repeat the question and then turn it to Anna.
Okay.
Do you offer any short-term program in the English language?
And I suppose that means in ESL, is that right? Yeah. We are actually, that's a very timely question. We are actually offering, we're going to offer an ESL course beginning, I believe, in summer of 2020. And we're still sort of figuring out what would be the best sort of lengths of time for that program. We're looking probably about 6 weeks, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, so we will, I'm sure at some point soon, be announcing that launch of that program. So yes to that, the question from the online audience.
So how would a one-semester experience at UC Berkeley Extension integrate with a degree program here in India? Do you want to?
Well, I mean, thank you for repeating the question, Eddie.
Sure.
To be honest, I think that depends a great deal on the institution, the home institution. We've had various levels of cooperation with our partners and some that have been more challenging than others. So we can only provide as much sort of transparency in terms of the content of our courses and what they are and how they might align with a student's coursework back home. And we have partners in China and India and Japan and France and Germany, and all the requirements are quite different, so it's difficult to answer specifically about India. So
yeah, it really, I mean, the answer to that question is like the answer to so many questions about US education and Indian higher education really depends on the university. But I will add to what Anna said, because generally speaking, most universities around the world tend to trust the quality of UC Berkeley and UC Berkeley Extension. Most of them will recognize the credits that we provide. The real question is, how do they map onto the degree requirements? And those can be very variable based on programs. So if you're an undergraduate or graduate even student thinking of coming to the US, our strong advice is that you talk to your advisor or someone at your university and say, this program at UC Berkeley Extension is what I'm thinking of doing. Will that fulfill my degree course requirements? And get a
what would be the approximate fees that would be charged, or the price I'll have to pay? And do you have scholarships so that I would have a more likely chance of using it in order to fulfill my goal?
Sure, sure. So the question is for someone with about a dozen years of experience in the IT industry, looking at the UC Berkeley Extension courses, what are roughly the costs for a period of study in project management? That's the first part of the question. I'll take that and just say that generally speaking, the base cost for a 4-month experience in project management, for example, is $11,000 US. That will grow a little bit if you want to take additional elective courses. So many students will come, they want to do project management, but they also want to take one course in social media marketing, for example. That will be, say, another $1,000. So really it varies between about $11,000 and $13,000 US for the tuition. Then there are roughly about, I think we estimate 10,000 for living costs or so on top of that. The second part of your question about scholarship opportunities, yes, we offer scholarship opportunities for our programs. They tend to range anywhere from $500 US all the way up to $5,000 US. And students generally are given the option to apply for the scholarship consideration at the time that they apply for the program. We try to make it generally easy to apply for a scholarship by just saying, tick this box if you'd like to be considered for a scholarship and submit a supplemental statement of purpose as to why you feel you would like one. And we give a decent number of scholarships each term to students.
I have a question on the summer abroad program. I mean, in India is a place where there are lots of private universities like Shivnada, where they can work through with the UC Berkeley Extension for brand building or whatnot. But there are other government institutions in India, government colleges in India. So how does one work through the Indian colleges, especially government institution, for the summer abroad program? Is it that the college has to come to you, or the student has to liaison between the university and the UC Berkeley Extension? How does it work, especially the summer abroad program?
Okay. So I think the question is we've talked about some of the private universities, but there are excellent state or public universities here in the in India, and how does one student or others at a school or university like that interface with us about a summer program? Really, there are two ways, I would say. One is the university will have an international staff person or office that can help facilitate that connection. That might be rare. In other cases, it's really up to the student. The student has to be a sort of self-starter and initiate contact with our office. We have a sort of student-facing advising team that works with prospective students. And for instance, if they want to come in the summer or even in the fall or spring and say, okay, I'd like to take this, and this course, we can then say, here's your likelihood of being able to find space in those courses, and do go back to someone at your university and assess whether those courses and credits would be accepted and how they might be applied. So in all honesty, we will say, I'm no expert on private or public universities in India, but we understand that the privates, whether it's Shiv Nadar or Ashoka or you name it, they tend to have a little bit more of a dedicated hand-holding staff that does this. But we're a public university. We would love students from public state universities in India to come to our programs. That's partly why we offer scholarships, and our staff is there ready to kind of help students with that process. They do have to have a little bit more initiative, though.
We do map a lot of student journeys about how students got to our programs. We conduct focus groups to ask students exactly how do they find out about our programs. And a surprising number of universities that do have proper international offices come on their own. They don't come with the support of their university. So as Eddie mentions, I think being a self-starter is not unique to just those students that you're talking about. I mean, really is across the board. Some do come through their international offices, but some really just Google, they search, and they apply on their own.
No,
So
that's fine, but there are lots of the state-owned colleges.
Yeah.
They don't have dedicated resource. It
Right.
takes long time. And
Yeah.
The process, is bureaucratic process to get through the system to get it done.
yeah, but to be honest, if they reach out to us and we can maybe help them a little bit on the journey in terms of information and processes as well. So
Can we take a question from online?
sure.
So this is about, I have 3 years of bachelor's degree from India, which is giving me an educational career of 15 years. But most of the US universities would require a 16-year of education to apply for a master's program. So would your institution be accepting a 15-year education? And would you be able to provide programs like MBA or an MSc?
Okay, so I'll repeat the question. I might.
I don't-
We'll
That's a
flip a
tricky-
coin
yeah,
to see
okay.
who answers. So the question is, in India, the bachelor's programs are 3 years in length. So when you couple that with K through 12, it's a 15-year period of study. Whereas in America, it's a 16-year period of study. Do we more or less recognize those as equivalent? And I would start by saying that UC Berkeley will look for a substitute for that 4th year. It really, as with everything, will vary, that answer, based on the university that you're interested in. UC Berkeley Extension, because we're more focused on the short-term, career-oriented, applied learning, we will let students into our diploma programs or our Berkeley Global Access program, even if it's just a 3-year degree. We will recognize that as equivalent to a 4-year experience. I don't know if there's anything.
Well, yeah, I
you
mean,
wanna add.
the Berkeley Global Access programs are actually designed for undergraduates. So obviously, those are they're going to come with 3 years of university experience anyway. That's a good question. We've actually talked a great deal about that since we've been here, about that 4th year and the qualification to apply for a master's program in the United States. So
yeah, so we're finding some students will come to the U.S. and do a program at an extension, whether us or elsewhere, just to kind of round out that 4th year of study. I will say there are certain foreign credential organizations or evaluation companies like World Education Services that will kind of evaluate your 3-year degree and say it is equivalent to a 4-year experience in the States. So again, depending on the school, you really have to ask the university what their policy is, but extension, extension is a lot about access. So we try to be as accommodating as possible in those instances.
Yeah. The internships that is offered through extension, are they paid or unpaid internships?
So internships that are offered through extension, are they paid or unpaid? They are unpaid. Yeah.
But that would
internship that is unpaid, but the OPT could be a paid internship.
Yeah.
Oh, that is absolutely correct. The OPT is a paid internship in 99% of the cases. That's right. Yeah.
So somebody studying an undergraduate in India, and they have only 2 months of summer vacation, right? And I remember that you were saying something like a 4 months program. I don't know whether it's a global access or something else. Can they do it in part? Second year 2 months and the third year 2 months, something like
Oh,
that?
to divide the semester. The question is whether or not a semester-long program can be divided into 2, and
For especially the summer one. I mean, the summer. I don't know whether it is summer or global access. I don't know.
Yeah.
So somebody studying in India who's
Right.
an undergraduate, graduate, second year, third year, and fourth year, if they wanted to come to US for a summer program, and
Summer
available
break typically would be June, July,
June, July, right?
or May, June, depends on the college that you're going
like
to.
May, June, if they want
May,
to come
June
to US,
typically.
right?
But would that wouldn't be the same as summer in the US where it would be maybe July, August.
How did they do it? How did they do it? How did they do it?
So the summer, so the question is just essentially about the summer calendar in the U.S. and how students from India might access summer courses. I would recommend you, actually, anyone online or here, to look at what we call our Summer Sessions website. If you Google Summer Sessions UC Berkeley, you'll see that the calendar is actually quite, diverse. There are 5 periods of study. There's one that's 6 weeks, there's one that's 8 weeks, there's one that's 3 weeks, and they span from late May through the end of August currently. So your original scenario of like coming at one time, doing part of the course, going back home, coming again, that really wouldn't work. But if you look at the calendar, there may be instances where, for instance, those 3-week programs or the shorter 5-week program might be relevant and might be applicable. There'll be other cases where students who just can't make the in-person calendar work can take online courses. We've not even talked about online learning today, but UC Berkeley Extension offers loads of online courses, and we're finding students from India and elsewhere sometimes enroll in those. Yeah.
So after I finish my undergraduate education, if I'd like to apply for graduate studies, could I take a gap year in between at UC Berkeley before applying for my graduate studies?
You're talking about the College Foundations program?
I think she's be between undergrad and
Yeah,
grad,
between
so like
undergrad
probably
and
like BGA probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The question is,
Would that boost my credentials?
the question is whether or not this young woman can take after completing the undergraduate, whether or not you could spend a year at Extension before applying to graduate school, and whether or not you'll get a boost in terms of applying. I mean, we can't make any guarantees about what the value of our program will be, other than what the individual value will be for you. I mean, we don't know if you apply for a university in the UK or a university in Australia or even in the United States, how they would view that year. I mean, I can't help but think that if you do your undergraduate in India, as I'm assuming that you're talking about, and you want to go overseas for a graduate program, a year at Berkeley Extension, whether it be through the Berkeley Global Access Program or otherwise, it can't hurt you in terms of assimilating to a U.S. culture, an English-speaking way of learning. The way that courses are taught in the United States are very different than the way they are taught in India, for example. So in terms of your personal acclimation, in terms of your growth, I definitely think there'll be a boost. I don't know whether or not that will be reflected in terms of your admission to a master's program somewhere. But in terms, a lot of our students, particularly for the Haas Business School program, Eddie had mentioned, a good number of them are taking that almost as a tester, so that when they do apply and go and get a full MBA, that they're ready, that they can. One student told me that he can hit the ground running, so that you don't spend the first 6 months of your MBA figuring out like how to buy groceries or listening to different dialects in English. That you're already been through all that. You know how to buy groceries. You know how to pay your rent. You know the best place to get pizza, and then you could focus on your academics. So I don't know if that's what you're talking about.
I think let me answer that. It's not a guarantee that you're going to get admission into UC Berkeley system or any other university. It will surely add to your profile because you've got that diverse experience of being on the US University campus, having done some internships, so it will add to your profile, but it's not guaranteeing that you're going to get into any other university, including UC Berkeley, just because you did the extension program. I think you need to understand that.
Yeah, but I can do a program between my undergraduate and
Yes, you
graduate.
See, I mean, her question is related to this. She is doing an undergraduate in a specific domain in India. She wanted to come and specialize in some areas, let's say the data science. UC Berkeley or UC Berkeley Extension, data science in 1 year in UC Berkeley Extension, and then apply for a master's. Does it help us to get into any of those universities? How does it help? We don't know. How does it help in terms of having a gap year, specializes in some skill, and then apply for universities around?
So it's the same thing. It adds to the student's profile, but it doesn't guarantee admission to any program, because the admission will be based on case-by-case basis. The student's GRE profile, the student's English language proficiency profile, the student's academic background in their undergraduate program in their home country will be considered, and of course the other things, have they published papers, have they presented at conferences. So all of that information is also going to be viewed by the admissions committee. So when they're reviewing the student's resume, the fact that the student went to UC Berkeley Extension will add value to their profile, but there is by no means a guarantee that they get admission to any program.
I understand.
No.
You're specifically asking for UC Berkeley Extension per se.
Any program. Even if you go for a 1 semester internship or a 1 year internship in the US, a 1 year study internship in the US. Like I can give you an example of a student of mine who studied at SSN College of Engineering here in student advised. He went for a 1-year program at Brown University. He did a 1-year research internship with a professor, and then he applied for PhD programs at multiple universities in the US, and he's now studying at UC San Diego. He's doing a PhD in UC San Diego. So that experience, that research internship for 1 year did add to his profile there. Yes, but that doesn't guarantee that he gets into an admission program either at Brown or at any other university. His application would be reviewed by the admissions committee to see whether it best fits their program or not. So that's how it will be viewed.
Yeah, and actually, I would just add one minor point to that, piggyback on that very valid point, and that is, I think it also is going to depend on your program, and I'll give an example. If you were a student that was thinking of doing an MBA overseas, honest to goodness, my advice to you is take that year and get work experience. Don't go study in a classroom again for another year. Get actual work experience, because NBA admissions committees will really value that work experience. The same may be true of other more applied areas.
If you're going into an MS program, then maybe you could consider something like this, that if you are able to get that area, study in the extension program itself. But if it's like you said, a more generic MBA program, then it makes sense to get at least 2 to 3 years of work experience before you apply to a Harvard Business School or a Stanford Graduate School of Business or any program where that's your aim. We have a couple of more interesting questions if you don't mind.
Of course.
There's a student who's writing to us from Kuwait in the Middle East, and he's actually a working professional, and he's interested in pursuing something in the area of instrumentation engineering or process automation engineering, and he wants to know whether UC Berkeley Extension would have any courses that may be of interest to his field.
So the question from Kuwait is whether UC Berkeley Extension offers anything in the realm of process automation engineering. We do not offer something that specific or that niche. A student who's interested in that kind of niche area of study would be better off looking at what we call our COE, College of Engineering, and they offer not only master's degrees but short-term specialized fields of study. If the questioner would like to make contact with EducationUSA, we can take his details and connect him or her to the right person at our College of Engineering. But extension is not quite that technical or specific.
We have another lady writing in from Kolkata in eastern part of India, and she's studied law already. She's done English honors and then a bachelor's in hospital management and MBA in human resources. But she hasn't been working. Her last degree was in 2011, and she hasn't been working since. But she'd like to sort of go back to the workforce. So she'd like upscale. She was wondering if there were any specific courses at UC Berkeley Extension that may be of value to her for her to retrain and get back into the work.
I guess the question is from a young woman in Calcutta who has been out of the workforce since 2011, but has a number of very esteemed qualifications, and what would be the best route for her if she were to pursue a course of study at UC Berkeley Extension. I tend to think that their international diploma program, which is, as Eddie had mentioned, which is a very much applied skills-based course and very specific to skills that are useful in the workplace in an office setting, would probably be the best fit for her, rather than one of our more academically based programs, in which case the outcomes are not quite as tangible in terms of skills going immediately to your workplace. So I guess that's what my suggestion would be.
Agreed, yeah, and if depending on her desired field of study, if she wants to continue in human resources, we have IDP or diploma programs in human resources management, and then that's where those specializations can also come into play depending on if there are supplemental interests to pursue, but yeah.
And depending on how ambitious she might be, if she does a whole year at IDP and then works and does OPT, I mean, she sort of can resurrect her whole career quite quickly with 2 years of experience, work and study in the United States. So.
Right, we have two more final questions from the online audience. One is they want to know if any of your, either the IDP or the Global Access Program or any of the other programs offered at UC Berkeley Extension, are they any STEM designated programs which will allow the student to get the 24-month extension on the OPT? They want to know that.
That's a great question. So are there any programs at UC Berkeley Extension that are STEM designated so that students can qualify for 36 months of OPT rather than just 12? I regret to say the answer is no, unfortunately. All of our programs are 12-month OPT eligible.
Right, so one last question is, how do the programs at UC Berkeley Extension compare with a one-year MS or an MBA from either the Haas School, Business School at UC Berkeley, or at any of the engineering school or other schools at UC Berkeley? How would they compare?
So how does a one-year program, say an MS or a one-year MBA somewhere like the Haas Business School, compare to comparable programs of comparable length at UC Berkeley Extension?
Well, I mean, maybe we can jointly answer this as it's the last question. One bar is that we don't require a GMAT, for example. I mean, so in order to in the United States, if you want to pursue a master's in business administration, I would think that most of the reputable business schools require you take a GMAT, which is no small feat. I mean, there's preparation, it's a cost, et cetera. So the barrier to entry is higher. The GPA also that you need to get an MBA at Haas is extremely competitive. So as you saw in an earlier slide, we require a 3.0, whereas I'm not sure what the Haas would be, but I do think it would be considerably higher. Plus, I think they would prefer that you have some work experience. So the criteria are actually a bit more significant, I think.
Yeah, and I would just go back to what we shared earlier, and that is that the pricing is going to be different. The Haas program will be considerably more expensive than the extension program, and the Haas program tends to train folks who are often interested in academia or a more research orientation, whereas our extension programs, again, said it once and say it again, very applied learning, skill-based, competency-based learning. So those are some key differences as well.
Thank you. Those were the questions from the online WhatsApp, Facebook, and YouTube audiences.
Okay. All right.
Any final questions from the audience in-house?
The extension program limited to only business administration or it covers engineering?
Question is whether extension programs are only in business administration or are they offered in other disciplines. They're offered in many, many different disciplines. So graphic design, architecture, we mentioned earlier, environmental design, law. The Berkeley Global Access Program is multidisciplinary, so very much business is an option, but only one option among very many. So it really, I mean, what's interesting is UC Berkeley, everyone knows UC Berkeley. We have 40,000 degree-seeking students at UC Berkeley. UC Berkeley Extension also serves an additional 30 to 40,000 students in the local community and worldwide. So if you imagine that student population, you can imagine the diversity of programs we offer. And if you were interested, I would encourage you to take a look at the website, extension.berkeley.edu. There's a lot, actually. Yeah.
There's one final question also. That a student, let's say, is not able to travel to the US to join the university on campus, can they still do the extension programs online, they'd like to know?
So if a student, the question is if the student cannot travel to the United States for any reason, can they do the program online? Some of our programs are not available online, but I would say about 50% of our programs are offered online and only online. So we do have a number of students who choose that option. I will say though, in those cases, the student who goes for an online option has to be what we call a very self-directed learner. They have to be able to motivate, discipline themselves, and stick with it because they're not surrounded by peers to exert peer pressure. They're just on their own. But yes, that's an option.
But not the programs that we described today, the global access programs, nor the IDP programs. You cannot take those online.
Yeah, you can take counterparts like
Yeah.
in HR or business analytics, but not the IDP or BGA,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Sorry, one quick question. Where can I get more information about the College Foundation Program? Is it available online at UC Berkeley?
Yes, yes. There's a, if you go to the extension website, there's a, I believe it's CFP for College Foundations Program .berkeley.edu, or if you just Google College Foundations Program Berkeley Extension, there's a wealth of information online. And then there should be an email address as well, cfp@berkeley.edu, and that's where you can engage with one of our advisors if you have follow-up questions.
Thank you so much.
Of course, yeah. I'm sorry? The detail for pricing, yeah. So again, our programs range for one semester of 4 months will be anywhere from $11,000 US to $20,000 US, depending on the nature of the program. And then scholarship opportunities are anywhere from $500 US to $5,000 US. So,
Now, there's a UC Berkeley Extension for a student who is going to undergraduate. Does it offer research internships to do professors in the UC Berkeley?
So the question is, for a student who wants to take a gap year in between undergraduate and graduate studies, does Berkeley or Berkeley Extension offer research-based internships? I don't know if you want to add to this, Anna, but it is possible, but it is not straightforward. And by that I mean what a student in that scenario would have to do is connect with a faculty member or a dean, a specific college, express their interest, and essentially get that faculty person or college's support for that experience, because that's a very kind of unique, tailor-made experience. We don't have a sort of standard program, but your question's great because we do have a number of students from Germany that are doing exactly that right now. They've found a faculty sponsor, and they've come for, in their case, 1 semester of a research-intensive experience. But that's where you really have to be a go-getter and find the right faculty who's simpatico or wants to help you in that way.
I think the majority of our students that do an internship are mostly interested in getting work experience. So again, that is aligned with the International Diploma program, which is more sort of practical learning. But I agree with Eddie that there are a lot of innovative students who can seek out sort of their own take on what that means. So.
Thank you so much, Eddie and Anna.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Okay.
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 So a big thank you to Anna and Eddie for that comprehensive presentation that provided input to our students on short-term study programs at UC Berkeley Extension. Just for our online audiences and in-house audiences, we have our contact information here on the slide. We have a YouTube page where we have a number of videos which have been uploaded about every step of the application process to USC universities. These are free resources, so students may access them at any point of time and go through those resources. Twice a month, we also host webinars. These are on 2 Saturdays in a month. Our EducationUSA India Facebook page is also very active. We upload relevant articles, information about scholarships, and also student success stories, so do follow us. Our official websites are educationusa.state.gov and usief.org.in. The USIF website, you can also check our monthly calendar of events where we will tell you what our upcoming events are for the entire month. But for those of you joining us today, I'll just quickly read out a couple of events that are coming up. If there are any students who already got admissions to fall 2019 in the US, we have a student visa session that we planned for the coming week, May 9th, Thursday. We'll have a US Vice Consul who will make a presentation on the US student visa application process, and they will take questions from students about any questions that they have about the visa application process. Then on the 10th of May, which is Friday, we have a session by Dr. Philip Peters, who is from the University of Central Florida, and his talk will be about film and media production, a graduate study in the US. Then on Saturday, 11th of May, we have a webinar which is about the Education USA Academy. So all high school students in India who are looking to do some summer programs in their vacations, they can look at the Education USA Academy as a great option to get some actual experience of being on an American university campus. And finally, on the 25th of May, which is again a Saturday, we have another online webinar where the topic is things I wish I knew before grad school. So that's again an online session. So do go to our USIF website to look up the calendar of events and to click on the registration link and register yourself for attending all of these sessions. Thank you so much for joining us again, and we hope to see you soon at the American Center.
Thank you very much. Thank you.